Hello, my name is Yesenia, and welcome to my fourth media presentation, Private versus Public, FedEx versus the U.S. Postal Service. In this presentation, I will be putting the United States Postal Service, which is a public sector, which is managed by the government, and FedEx, which is a private-owned sector. And I will be putting them up against each other in terms of looking into their similarities, their differences, discussing whether it matters, and finally plugging in the references that I used in order to put this media presentation together. So one of the main similarities that I did observe upon looking at both the USPS and FedEx is, well, the obvious is that they're both delivery services. And because they are both delivery services, they do work with time. And because of this, I did kind of see an updated version of Frederick W. Taylor. His management theory is very much applied in both the USPS and FedEx. So the main focus of the both companies is efficiency. So they do focus on breaking down tasks among different people in order to make everyone work in a mechanical way, so that way that it increases predictability and consistency among the workers. And I did notice that upon looking at the different roles, that it is set up in a way so everything works in such a fluid way that it makes it easy for managers to replace workers while maintaining the same productivity. So if they let one person go, they can have someone step in, be easily trainable, so that way the same productivity still continues. And in looking into the setup of FedEx and the USPS, I did see a little bit of Max Weber in there because there is a hierarchy that is set up. And because there is a hierarchy, I do notice that there is very little room for creativity because the workers, each one of them, they have a role that they have to follow. So it is a very firm and ordered system, and I can see why it is very ordered because it is such a big company or a big sector, and it manages a lot of people in one day because it is a delivery service system. So basically, FedEx and the USPS is managed by rules and regulations. So now on to the differences. So one difference is that FedEx is a private-owned sector and the USPS is a public-owned sector. Upon researching both the FedEx and the USPS, it was explained that FedEx is basically owned by an individual and an individual working with other, I guess, corporates. And because it is owned by an individual, I guess more effort is put into the actual functionality of FedEx and trying to make their customers happy, because if their customers are not happy and poor service is provided, then of course no money is coming into FedEx, which means that they run the risk of being bankrupt. But on the other hand, we have USPS, who doesn't have to compete for profit because it is funded by the government. And because of this, I guess people, it was explained in an article that people don't mind paying a little bit more for the service for FedEx if they know that they will be treated better, because they know that in the U.S. Postal Service, if they may end up waiting longer in lines or be given poor customer service. Another difference is that FedEx doesn't have to abide by the government's regulations like the USPS. So for example, the USPS, they are, by law, they do have to go to every address in the country, even if it's a rural area, and they don't profit for it. Meanwhile, FedEx, they don't have to if they don't profit from a delivery, of course they won't go. And I was surprised to read that actually FedEx, they sometimes work with USPS in order for both companies to profit, because FedEx will actually take on some packages that are rural areas where they don't profit, and they give the package to USPS to take to the rural area, so that way they can, I guess, split even on the money. So that was something interesting that I found out, that both FedEx and USPS actually work together because of that difference. So now on to the important question of whether does it matter? And I think yes, it does matter. I know in an article it did state that the U.S. Postal Service doesn't necessarily have to go private, so it reaches the same standards as FedEx. Because FedEx is known to be a little bit more quicker and efficient, because they do provide, I guess, more options for its consumers in terms of being able to track down their packages and not being as regulated as the USPS. But I think as a consumer, it does matter, because you want you want to go for a company that does represent you well. And I know this is just speaking in terms of packages, but I think it is important to see whether the companies care for their consumers. So, of course, in a private sector, if a private owned business is owned by an individual, of course, there will be more interest put in, because they are profiting from the consumer. And at the same time, if poor customer service is given, they know that no money is generated, which means that they run the risk of being bankrupt. But if there is a company like the USPS that is being funded by the government, and they know that whether they give good customer service or bad customer service, they know they'll still be fully funded. So, because of those differences, I do think it does matter. So, we've arrived to the end of my presentation. Here are a couple of my references that I used. I hope they could be of some help, and thank you for watching.